This video is about how to squeeze more life out of your late 2014 Mac Mini computer. There are only so many ways to speed up a computer. With some computers you can increase the amount of RAM memory. Adding more RAM memory is inexpensive and the improvements are often unimpressive. With the late 2014 Mac Mini, increasing the amount of RAM is not an option. With some computers you can upgrade or supplement the processor by way of an accelerator or graphics card. Buying an accelerator is often not worth it because the cost of upgrading is money better spent towards a new computer. But there's one thing you can do if you haven't already done it, and that is change the storage for a faster kind of storage. Back when the late 2014 Mac Mini was new, most computers were equipped with hard disk drives or HDD storage. An HDD is a mechanical device that stores your data as tiny magnetized regions on disks which rotate about 90 times per second. The problem with HDDs is that they're mechanical. It can take a long time for the data you need to be located on the disk. It may be closer or further from the edge of the disk, in which case the HDD has to seek the information by moving a mechanical arm back and forth to get close to the data. And it may have to wait for the information you need to come around to where it can be read. When I say a long time, I'm talking about thousandths of a second, but those thousandths add up, especially when dealing with large files on fragmented HDDs. Since the late teens, a new kind of storage device has emerged called solid-state drives or SSDs. Installing a new SSD in a Mac Mini with an HDD will make disk operations like saving and opening files, without exaggeration, 3 to 6 times faster. And while SSDs used to be very expensive, now they're not. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to remove your old HDD and install an SSD in your late 2014 Mac Mini. I'm also going to show you how to change the battery in your 2014 Mac Mini because it's getting long in the tooth. The procedure is not difficult and doesn't require any special tools that aren't available on Amazon. In terms of choosing an SSD, you need to search for a 2.5-inch SATA, S-A-T-A, SSD. These are the tools I'll be using for this upgrade. A TR6, also known as a Torx Security 6 screwdriver. A T8, also known as a Torx 8 screwdriver. This bent piece of wire is a motherboard removal tool for the 2014 Mac Mini. You can make one yourself or buy it pre-made. This one is pre-made. A nylon spudger. It's used to remove the bottom plate and sometimes hold or push things into place. This is a nut pick. It's used like a spudger when the nylon spudger is too big. This is just a pair of fine tweezers. I have a flashlight to shine where I can't see clearly. What I forgot to add here is a strong magnet. I use the magnet to magnetize the screwdrivers and pick up the screws because some of them are tiny. I use a handheld blower and soft brush to remove dust and debris. For more stubborn dirt and dust, I use 99% isopropyl alcohol, Q-tips, and makeup wipes. There are a couple of places where I will remove tape. I suppose I could reuse that tape, but I don't. Instead, I use Kapton tape, which is both insulating and heat resistant. Since we're upgrading the hard drive to a solid-state drive, we'll need a new solid-state drive. I highly suggest you stick to a name brand rather than an off-brand because it's less likely to fail prematurely. I've used these SanDisk drives with great success. Finally, this is a BR2032 battery. It looks the same as a CR2032, that is, it's 20 millimeters in diameter by 3.2 millimeters thick, and it's also 3 volts. But this lithium battery is designed for the high temperatures it will encounter inside a computer. It also has a much longer shelf life. Start by positioning the 2014 Mac Mini in front of you so that the rear of the computer, with the serial number and ports, are nearest to you. There are 3 clips, roughly here, here, and here, in a triangle that hold the bottom cover on. We'll use the nylon spudger to pry along the outside of the bottom cover, and it should lift off quite easily. And it's off. Bonus! This used computer I bought comes with someone else's dust included at no extra cost. I will use the bottom cover as a tray to hold and organize the screws that I'll be taking out from this point on. Before going any further, I'm going to wipe out all of this dust. This black circle over here is the Wi-Fi antenna. To remove the bottom plate, I'll need the TR6 screwdriver to remove the 3 clips and 3 screws. Just a heads up for later on, the clips and screws will need to be returned to the same places, otherwise the bottom cover won't stay on. Don't worry, I'll remind you later. The Wi-Fi antenna is attached to the Mac Mini by an antenna wire, which is fragile. Don't yank off the cover. There it is. This is the antenna wire. It starts at the antenna and goes underneath this lip and ends up at a plug on the motherboard right here. I'm going to take out this screw right here that holds on the clamp for the antenna wire. There should be a washer included with the screw. Don't lose it. For me, I was lucky. They both came out together. Using the spudger, lift the Wi-Fi antenna plug off its receptacle on the motherboard. This cover plate needs to be cleaned too. I'll do that afterwards. There were several versions of the Mac Mini. Some included something Apple called a Fusion drive. If yours does, there will be a small proprietary SSD in the corner. I've never seen one before, but if you have such a Mac Mini, you'll need a Torx 5 screwdriver to remove it. The next step is to remove the cooling fan. There are 1, 2, 3 screws holding it in. Again, get the TR6 screwdriver. These screws are captive and don't come out. Lift up the fan and rest it on the side of the aluminum enclosure. It's a good idea to blow and/or wipe out the fan from dust that may have accumulated inside it. This is the fan connector. Lift it out of its socket. Lift, don't pull. And it's out. The hard drive cable is held in with a bracket. Again, use the TR6 screwdriver. Take out the screw that secures the bracket. You will need tweezers to lift out the bracket because it's not ferrous. Lift it straight up. There you go, it's out. The infrared sensor cable is next. It lifts up and out. Use the nut pick to unplug this cable. It's free. There's a connector for an NVMe SSD right there, but you need to obtain a special adapter. If you want me to do a video about that, please let me know in the comments. I believe these two posts were for a clamp covering Apple's NVMe drive adapter. You have to remove it before going any further. Next, use the TR6 screwdriver to remove the one screw that secures the motherboard. It's a long screw. Now I need the 2014 Mac Mini motherboard removal tool. It's a bent piece of stiff wire shaped like the letter U. It goes in these two holes. It must go in all the way. Wiggle it until you feel it dropping down. Then it's in all the way. You're going to pull the tool back towards you. That will release the motherboard from the Mac Mini's enclosure. Once the tool is touching the edge of the enclosure, you can pull the tool out. You won't need it again. Over here is the connector that delivers power to the motherboard from the power supply. It will probably be reluctant to come out, like mine was. But it's out. Now you can resume pulling out the motherboard. Pull it slowly to make sure the motherboard doesn't get caught on anything. Here's the bottom of the motherboard and the top. And there's the battery that we'll get to shortly. Next, we need to remove the power supply. Reach in under the AC connector and slide out the locking clip from underneath the connector. There's the locking clip. Now rotate the AC connector 90 degrees to the left so the connector is vertical. Grab your TR6 screwdriver and take out the power supply screw. The power supply can be taken out of the enclosure now. This is the power supply, nicely designed and self-contained. Remove the one screw that secures the drive tray using the TR6 screwdriver again. Here's the hard drive. In my case, it's a 1 terabyte, 2.5-inch TravelStar hard disk made by Hitachi Global Storage Technology. While it boasts a 6 gigabit per second interface, the maximum transfer rate is only 998 megabits per second, or about 125 megabytes per second. Actual speeds are between 55 and 115 megabytes per second. Now take out the larger T8 screwdriver and remove the 4 screws that hold the hard drive to the hard drive tray. Carefully thread the connectors through their openings so that the hard drive can be separated from the tray. This is the hard drive. Carefully peel the ribbon cable from the printed circuit. Gently separate it. You would think that the SATA connector would slide off, but it doesn't. There's a sticker you absolutely must remove first. I will use my tweezers to gently scrape it off. From there, the SATA connector does slide off. And off it comes. This hard drive, as lovely as it is going away. This is the new drive, my SSD. It's a SanDisk SD SSD H3 500G G26. The interface is 6 gigabits per second, and maximum transfer rate is about 500 megabytes per second. According to one reviewer, actual speeds were closer to about 350 megabytes per second. You would reasonably expect that disk-intensive operations like booting, loading, saving, and caching would be noticeably faster with an SSD. Slide the SATA connector on. I'll use some capped-on tape to replace the sticker that was here before. Now thread the cables back through their openings. And now I can put the hard drive screws back. It's usually best not to tighten them until all 4 screws are in. I'm going to use some alcohol and makeup wipes to clean up the enclosure. It looks like it's oxidized or corroded here. I don't know exactly which. Now slide the hard drive tray back into the enclosure. If these 2 screws aren't tight, their heads will stick out just enough to make it impossible to reinstall the hard drive tray. They only have to stick out an extra millimeter to make your life difficult. If the rubber bushings on the 4 hard drive screws are compressed, it's probably tight enough. Find the screw for the drive tray. Use the TR6 screwdriver to put it back. Slide the power supply unit back into place. Push the AC connector in vertically. Line it up where it normally sits and twist it to the right 90 degrees so that it locks in place. Slip the locking clip in underneath it. The bend in the clip should face up. Find the power supply screw and put it back in with the TR6 screwdriver. We're going to deal with the battery replacement now. The battery in this Mac Mini wasn't dead yet, even though it was between 7 and 11 years old. But batteries don't last forever, so rather than waiting until it dies, I'm going to put a new one in now while the computer is taken apart. Grab the motherboard. Place it face up with the ports facing away from you on a padded surface. You will be using the tweezers to remove the sticker covering the battery in the battery compartment. Peel back the sticker. Now use the nut pick to push the edge of the battery towards the back of the board. It will either come out or fly out. There we go. It's out. Install the new BR2032 battery with the positive terminal facing up and cover the battery and compartment with capped-on tape. Now get the Mac Mini again and orient it as it was before, upside down with the serial number and opening close to you. Slide the motherboard back into the enclosure, being mindful of the 2 plugs hanging out of the drive tray and the power supply connector. Stop when there are still 2 or 3 centimeters of motherboard still out of the enclosure and plug in the power supply connector. Inspect it carefully to ensure that the plug is well seated in the receptacle. finish pushing the motherboard back into the enclosure. This step is optional and is meant to make sure the power supply is properly connected. Attach the power cord and plug it in. Hit the on button and wait about 20 seconds. You should get a chime. There you go. It's got the power.
This far, no farther!
Don't forget to disconnect the power before continuing the rest of the assembly. Use the TR6 screwdriver to put back the motherboard screw. Line up the infrared sensor cable over its connector. Make sure it's not twisted. Use the spudger to push it back in. Line up the drive plug over its socket and push it in. Use the TR6 screwdriver to secure the bracket with the screw that holds it in. Remove any dust from the fan before reinstalling it. Reconnect the fan cable. And then put the fan into place before using the TR6 screwdriver to tighten all 3 screws. Check to see if the bottom plate needs any wiping. Use alcohol and wipes as necessary. The Wi-Fi cable needs to be fed back underneath the lip of the enclosure. Using the TR8 screwdriver, attach but don't tighten the antenna wire bracket. Line up the antenna cable with the connector on the motherboard and push into place. Then fully tighten with the clamp screw. Replace the bottom plate. You must put the screws and clips back in the correct places or the bottom cover won't stay on. Clips are installed at 10, 2, and 6 o'clock. Screws are installed at 7, 12, and 5 o'clock. Press on the bottom cover. The hardware part of the upgrade is now complete, but we still need to install macOS. To get this computer up and running, we need to get macOS into the Mac Mini's memory. Then use Disk Utility to format the SSD, and then use the macOS installer to install macOS onto the SSD. We're going to use a feature in Macs made after 2010 called Internet Recovery. As you might expect, we will need a reasonably fast internet connection. The most difficult part of Internet Recovery is that you will need 2 or perhaps 3 hands to hold down certain keys while you press the on button on the computer. Let's look at what Apple says about the 3 Internet Recovery options. Pressing Command R as the computer is starting will restore macOS from the hidden recovery partition. But since this SSD is new, it doesn't have a hidden recovery partition, so that's not going to help us. That leaves you with 2 options. Pressing Option Command R during startup. That will give you the latest compatible version of macOS, which would be version 12.7.6 called Monterey. or pressing Option-Shift-Command-R during startup for the original version of macOS that came with this machine, which would be version 10.10.5 called Yosemite. So which one do you install? That's a matter of choice between an older version and a newer version. You even have the option to install something newer than the latest version of macOS supported by Apple. That requires OpenCore Legacy Patcher, but you will still have to choose a version of macOS for now. I chose Monterey. After choosing which keys to hold down while turning on the Mac Mini, you will be prompted to enter your Wi-Fi credentials unless you have a wired Ethernet connection. While it shouldn't matter which one you use, I kept receiving an error -2005F using Wi-Fi, so I resorted to a wired connection and it worked fine. Then you should see this after connecting to the internet. It says this may take a while. It's an understatement. When you eventually see this screen, choose Disk Utility and use it to format the SSD. Then quit Disk Utility and choose Reinstall macOS Monterey. It will take some time to install macOS Monterey. When it finally finishes, you'll be prompted to set up your computer as if it was fresh from the factory. If you've been following along and updating your Mac Mini, congratulations! You're all done. After having upgraded my late 2014 Mac Mini, I can now enjoy it in Mr. Brown's basement. I hope you found this video both interesting and helpful. Likes, comments, and subscriptions are always welcomed and appreciated. Thank you for watching.